Welcome to another edition of the Show Me Hoops podcast. I'm Coach David Heeb, and today I'm joined by Coach Rob Heitman. Did I get that right?
Yes.
Okay. And of the Hogan Prep Rams. And Coach, we've never met. Just kind of reached out to you, and I really appreciate you taking the time to do this.
No, absolutely, David. My pleasure, and especially on the heels of what the guys were able to accomplish last weekend. Definitely wanted to spread the good news.
Absolutely. And, that's why, I did reach out. I mean, number one, we just like talking basketball with people. But, if it's somebody who I've actually seen play and having seen your kids play 2 games last weekend down at the Final Four, I caught you guys a little bit last year also because you were at the Final Four last year. And you were able to seal the deal. And so just talk a little bit about not just the state title, but for your group, it's really been a 2-year journey. I mean, so.
Well, yeah, it has been actually given. I've got 9 seniors, David, on the squad, 7 in the top rotation. So not having any underclassmen, it just speaks to how special of a group that this core group of seniors have been. But it's been more of a 4-year work in progress, to be honest with you. Because number one, Damian Daniels, he started every game for us since the minute he's arrived. He's going to finish, or he has finished with I think 1,882 points. So he's the all-time leading scorer in Hogan Prep history, and that record is pretty impressive when you factor in the likes of Marcus Denman and Broderick Newbill, and some of the past players who've gone on to do some big time things. Rashawn Collins, 0 for us this year. He's also been playing a lot since his freshman year, as has number 22, Kevon Mull-Edwards. So, I mean, it's been, a long time coming in terms of all the work over 4 years. As you saw us play last year, David, I mean, our squad's not built on size. So we've kind of played maybe a non-traditional brand of basketball. Last year we really grasped Shaka Smart's Havoc system when he was at VCU. We put our spin on it, made a few tweaks, and called it Rampage. And against Whitfield, it didn't hold up well. We thought maybe playing on an additional 10 feet of court space, 94 feet, that we might be able to outlast them, if you will. But just gave up way too many easy baskets en route to losing 79-70. So this year in the off season, and knowing that we weren't going to be as deep, we had some player defections and graduated 3 players. We knew we were going to have to. I knew I was going to have to adjust just our overall approach. Going to have to find a way, even being undersized, to hunker down in the quarter court and get stopped. So, and I'm not a big zone guy, but in the off season, did some research and talked to some people and went to our circle defense, matchup 2-3 zone, which really helped us out on Friday night, going up against Jamar Williams. Saturday against Charleston, second half it was kind of pretty much mano-a-mano, and obviously with Clark and Sharp. I mean, those guys are really tough. I mean, so the guys buying into the off season and realizing that, hey, this isn't going to be as much up and down, but we're going to find a way to get stops and box out and play physical. Just real quick, the turning point for us this season was December 30th over in Rolla. We played Rolla for the championship game of their tournament, and Coach Miller does a great job with those guys, and we just got bullied from a basketball standpoint. They went out and just absolutely took us out back to the woodshed and just bullied us. We gave up way too many uncontested layups. So coming back from that, the second semester, our calling card, our theme was, to become more physical, to be tougher. Of course, every other coach does this as well. I didn't think I was going to have to break out the 33 Jay Billis principles of being basketball tough with this group, because I'd done it the previous years. But over Christmas break, when we got back, I mean, we roll out the basketball toughness guide by Jay Billis, just to revisit that. And when we came out second semester and and really played with more strength and basketball toughness.
I mean, I'm a big fan of the Havoc system and just pressure defense in general. I played ball growing up at Scott County Central High School. I'm from that part of the state, southeast Missouri, and so everybody down there, the good teams all pressure, and so that's good stuff. Now, Coach, where are you from originally? What brought you to Hogan Prep?
Yeah. I'm from Council Bluffs, Iowa, just 3 hours north on I-29. It's a suburb of Omaha, Nebraska, just on the other side of the Missouri River. Played basketball collegiately at Simpson College, Division III school up in Indianola, Iowa, just south of Des Moines. And I told someone earlier in the week, after college, I was in the private sector for about 10 years before the itch of teaching and coaching just became, too strong to ignore. So jumped back in the early 2000s, was a volunteer assistant for a couple friends of mine up in the Omaha Council Bluffs area. And then when I finished student teaching, first opportunity, the only opportunity to be a head coach opened up in Kansas City on the girls' side. So 2007-08, first year at Hogan Prep, coached the girls for 5 years. Took a year off, and then when Coach Steitzer left after 2013 to go over to Shawnee Mission North, that's when the opportunity presented itself, and I jumped at it.
Yeah, and I noticed that you did come in behind him, and you mentioned some of the names, Marcus Denman, and anybody that's familiar with basketball in Missouri knows Hogan Prep has got a great tradition, and so you kind of had to reboot this thing and pick it back up. So, what was your approach coming in? I mean, because now you are the state champs, but you didn't start that way. What was your approach? Coming in trying to build a program.
Well, I'm glad you asked that question, David. Twofold. Let me take it back 5 years, and then I want to talk about the beginning of this season. But 5 years ago, and this often is the case. The cupboard was pretty bare, when Coach Steitzer left, so it was, first year hitting the reset button and trying to just develop a culture, and maybe it was a good thing because expectations were I don't want to say low, but they were like lukewarmish, so you come in and you set your expectations and over time that culture begins to develop and if that means you have to part ways with some guys, and then you do so for the betterment of the long term. The beginning of this school year, so on the heels of beating Mountain Grove and finishing third place last year, obviously expectations sky high. And we had a phenomenal summer, played 22 games, won 21. Only game we lost. We played Rockhurst 5 times and lost 1 4 out of 5. Coach Campbell does a great job, and they split squatted. He's very deep, but won the KMO event, prestigious summer league tournament over in Kansas City. So anyway, the expectations were sky high, and on August 18th, we lost a former teammate, Roosevelt Cooper, who wore number 24 for us last year. For your listeners who may have attended the Final Four at Mizzou Arena. The reason why I bring his jersey number up is in his last high school game against Mountain Grove. And Roosevelt wasn't a flashy offensive player. And he was our best defender, did a great job against Jacob Gilliard in our district championship game last season for Barstow. But, I mean, it epitomizes what a lockdown defender is. And roll your sleeves, junkyard dog, let's bring strong box outs to the table. Long story short, he scored his career high of 24 points against Mountain Grove. Fast forward to this August 18th, and he stopped by school, got his diploma, said his goodbyes, and coincidentally enough, was on his way down to Missouri State University just to go be a student. He may have tried to walk on to Coach Lusk's team, but he was just happy to be accepted into Missouri State and was going to go down there and be a student. Left to go get his hair cut and was shot and killed outside a barbershop in Kansas City. So, yeah, I mean, since he was such a popular teammate, I mean, everyone loved Rosie. Everyone still loves Rosie. So our calling card, who we played for, who we dedicated our season for, what was for number 24. Patches made for the jerseys. Ritual. I brought his jersey to every game. We touched up before the game and walking out of the locker room at halftime. So that really, you want to talk about already having a lot of expectations on you, but that really gave us a single-minded purpose, trying to come back from that and dedicating the season to him.
Oh, goodness gracious. I mean, yeah, that's like we were talking about kind of off the air before we started talking, I had a near-death experience, and so, it kind of makes you gain some perspective, and that's definitely a tragedy what happened in your community there. But, it can bring perspective, to those guys and say, let's take advantage of today. And so.
Yeah, it can bring perspective, David, and it also can bring opportunity. I mean, as you know, being a former coach, adversity, it either, it's either going to divide you or it's going to bring it closer together, and it brought us closer together. And the rallying cry, the other night, late in the second half, I try to provide as much adversity as possible. Again, let me give you a couple of examples. We don't play home games. From a facility standpoint, we're in the same building that when it was Bishop Hogan back, I think first year was 1944. We're a charter school, so from a financial standpoint, budget standpoint, I mean it's kind of a shoestring operation. Getting reimbursed 75 cents on the dollar, state and federal funding. Anyway, we've got an off-site practice facility that we're able to afford about 50% of the time. The other 50% of the time, I mean, we practice on a 60-foot court that's it's very small and I mean not safe. So a lot of the practices at school are just kind of walkthroughs, glorified walkthroughs. But where I'm going with that is, from a coach's standpoint, I love going out and being Road Warriors game in and game out. We travel. If you saw our schedule, I mean, we played Elias, Jeff City Elias. We played Rockbridge. Late in the year, it stinks. It's unfortunate for our parents and people at our school who want to see us play because we always play on the road. But late in the year, we were down 2 or 3 games due to weather, and I noticed on Misha's website there was an opportunity to go play Coach McTagg's group down at Glendale. And holy smokes, yes, we picked that up. In fact, it was during District Week, David. So the way it lined up, it was President's Day, February 19th. I agreed to go play that game. We didn't have school, so varsity only jumped on a bus, went down there, and we were starting districts the next night. Supposed to, but I wanted. We had won 12 in a row, and I wanted the guys to face some more adversity. Just to get us as hardened and ready as possible for the postseason. So went down there and we found ourselves down 18 at half. I mean, holy smokes! You want to talk about running into a bus, especially in the home gym. I mean,
yes.
And my goodness! I mean, I watched them on film. I knew we knew what we were getting ourselves into, but especially when they get it going from the outside, I mean, it's almost impossible to stop. That's why I was really surprised that Parkview got them. But with that being said, let me fast forward to Saturday night against Charleston when Damian picked up his 4th foul with about a minute and a half to go in the third quarter. I mean, I vividly remember he came out and his body language wasn't good, and it was a shaky call, but I mean, it was whistled, and he comes off the floor, and his body language and what he was saying kind of rubbed off on Marty Jackson, 33, who was on the bench, and I immediately went over to those 2 seniors and I said, "Gentlemen, we've been here before. Remember Glendale? Remember what happened? Big deficit. Yeah, we didn't win the game, but we scratched and clawed our way back. And we, I pointed up at the scoreboard against Charleston. We still got a full quarter to go. So, I know that's kind of a long-winded answer, but in terms of adversity, as a Class 3 program, really looked at opportunities the last couple of years to play as many Class 4s and 5s as possible.
Well, that's a terrific story, and I don't know very many people that would want to go play a game right before districts, and much less let's get on the road and go play, Glendale. I got to catch them. They played up here in Columbia this year, and they're about as fun to watch. I mean, they can put points up in a hurry. I mean, so
yeah.
I know.
Yeah, I had to field some questions both internally and externally. Coach, why are you going down there? And fortunately, I think the basketball guys were shining on us because the next day we had some ice, and school was canceled and districts got pushed back. So fortunately, we didn't have to play until February 21st, so it provided a day off. But as a 1 seed playing the 8 seed, you also kind of felt like it was possibly a mismatch too. But no, it all worked out, obviously.
Yeah, that's so. You bring up some interesting things, and like I said at the beginning of this, we never met. I'm not as familiar with your program, other than just kind of on the outside looking in. I know you guys have a lot of tradition there, but you mentioned some things with your gym and your playing situation, not having any home games. Talk to me about your administration, because we have a lot of coaches that come on here and talk with us, but we have a lot of coaches that listen to this statewide. And really, we've been in all 50 states and like 150 different countries that listen to this podcast. Just how important was it when you're coming in, you're talking about the cupboard being bare and, having to start from scratch and not really having home games. How does your administration support your program, and what's your relationship like with them? And I guess just my general question would be, how important has that been in your program's ascension?
Yeah, no, it's a great question, and again, maybe as an outsider, you might kind of look at some of the hurdles that we have being a inner city charter school, and maybe kind of question or bring up some doubt in terms of the support that the different programs at Hogan Prep receive. But our administration has been great. First and foremost. My direct boss, Phil Escola, athletic director, who's been a long-time football coach for Hogan Prep. He took a team down to the Dome back in 2006, and they lost championship game to Blair Oaks. But a very successful football coach, legendary here in Kansas City, and then a building principal, Shannon North, and superintendent Dr. Danny Tipton. They've done a great job in fostering and promoting a family atmosphere. Being a smaller school, charter school that's within the boundaries of KCPS, playing second fiddle from the standpoint of monetary and budgetary resources, you got to find different ways to I guess create a niche, and what makes us attractive to the parents in KCPS is two things: A, the college prep curriculum, and B, the I think the hashtag. I'm not a social media guy, but the hashtag is RamFam. And that's carried over from parents who played for Coach Escola or Coach Steitzer back in the day, and now they've got little ones in our elementary school. And if you talk to anyone in Kansas City, I think most people would agree. Hogan's doing it the right way, and it's an organic, it's an organic approach, and trying to, we always the margin for error is smaller for us because again, not to keep playing the fiddle, but we're not as fortunate as bigger districts in terms of funding, so we've got to do less. We've got to do more with less, and we got to be, we got to use our resources wisely. So I've got nothing but just the utmost respect and appreciation for what our administration has been able to help provide the basketball program here.
Well, yeah, and I'm not as familiar with just the Kansas City area in general. I grew up in Southeast Missouri. I've got a lot of friends who coach in St. Louis and whatnot. I'm a little more familiar with that side of the state. So, just how competitive is the Kansas City area? Like, I know how we feel in Southeast Missouri where I was growing up, especially like at the Class 1, 2, and 3 level. A lot of times we felt like, wow, if we can just get out of here, we'll fare pretty well at the state tournament.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's just so brutal, the competition down there. What's it like in Kansas City? I mean, how's the scene as far as high school basketball goes?
Oh, David, it's yeah. I mean, obviously wherever you're from, you're gonna feel more pride than the coach down the street or across the state. But I mean, we give me 30 seconds so I can come up with a list of names as far as high school players who've gone on done some great things at the collegiate level and professionally. I mean, it's and similar to St. Louis and Southeast Missouri, where across the river you've got whether it's Illinois, Kentucky, and Tennessee. I mean, it's not just Kansas City, Missouri. Where you got your Rockhursts, where you got your Lee Summit Wests, where you got your Raytown Souths and Grandview, which, by the way, I'm really, really pumped and obviously, biased from a geography standpoint, pulling for Ray South and Grandview tonight because I've got a good relationship with Coach Ime over at Ray South. The last 3 or 4 years, no secret. I mean, St. Louis, the eastern side of the state, is owned boys basketball, at least from the class 3, 4, and 5 perspective. So, talking to Aaron this week, really, really glad Hogan Prep was able to kind of get the pendulum swinging back towards the western side of the state, and hopefully his guys or Grandview can win tonight and get to the championship tomorrow. I don't know as much about Jennings. Obviously, Sykeston's a juggernaut, and all the listeners out there, if you hear this and you can get to that, I think it's a 6:00 game. Sykeston Grandview could be one for the ages.
Awesome game. Yeah, that's gonna be an awesome game.
So, but real quick, just to put a capper on your question. The Kansas City, I mean, for those on the eastern side of Missouri, the Kansas City, Kansas side is just the EKL, Eastern Kansas League. I mean, when you start talking about Bishop Yates, just finished winning back-to-back state titles, and they've got Jeremiah Robinson Earl, who's a junior. He's being recruited by North Carolina and everyone else. He looks like he could be the next Jason Tatum. You've got Blue Valley Northwest, who we played this year. That's large class 6. The largest class in Kansas is 6. They just won back-to-back class 6 state titles. So yeah, it's not just a Casey Mo thing. When you start talking about Kansas City in general, I mean, lots of quality programs on both sides of the state line. So, we feel that, like I said earlier, as a Class 3 program and with as much talent and the strides that we made the last couple of years, really, I really, really wanted to test the guys as much as we could during the regular season so that we could be, as prepared to make that postseason run.
And you certainly were. I mean, that's always was my philosophy as a coach. I won 2 state titles at the Class 1 level. We would go schedule Class 3, Class 4, Class 5 for that exact reason. I mean, I want us to have been in every situation and have been battle tested prior to the state tournament. I always felt like you didn't want your toughest test or your toughest battle to be in the quarterfinal or the state finals. Like, we've already had our toughest test, whether it was a brutal week of practice and then having to go play a Friday night game when maybe I had taken their legs from them a little bit. Like you said, I want to really turn up the difficulty level so that when you get in that state final, like the story you just told, and you're in the middle of some adversity, you can look your guys in the eyes honestly and say, hey, we've had it tougher than this. We're okay.
Yeah, absolutely, Dave. No, that's and just to be able to, whether it's just saying Glendale, Damien, remember Glendale, Marty, remember Rockbridge. I mean, just to be able to bring up one team and what we went through, and the guys can instantly just harken back and say, oh yeah, that's right. And who knows if how much, but it helps refocus at that moment. When it's you got the basketball bullets flying, and on that stage in that moment, you're just looking at it from a coach's standpoint. You're just looking for one piece of motivation or redirect to where you can get that player who might be off a little bit or is frustrated, get him back on track. Another thing I'll add to that is, and we talked off air beforehand. If you would have told me before we tipped against Transportation on Friday that we were going to finish +6, 48-42 on the glass, I would have laughed my tail off. And then Charleston, I think we were +1. I think it was 40-39, but we were +1. So on the weekend, not shooting the ball well. We were 6 of 28 from behind the arc, and as you saw us play, I mean, we're a team. We don't shoot as many threes as we did last year, which is a good thing in my book. But usually, I mean, I think from a team standpoint, I mean, we're in the mid 30s, but 6 of 28, below 25%. if you would have told me that before the weekend, I would have said probably going to go home and with 2 L's. Or definitely not playing for a state championship. But it speaks to, the guy's heart and their comfortable feelings with going to battle against Jamar Williams, 6'7", because we've already played against Parker Braun or Joe Pleasant, 6'7", 6'8", from a Blue Valley Northwest, or we've already matched up against Ray South's big guys. Yeah, I mean, absolutely. There's no the success that rattling off seven wins in a row postseason and win it all. That success falls on 3 areas: talented group of seniors, playing for number 24, fallen teammate, but lastly, that regular season schedule. That's what I firmly believe that's what helped get us done.
Oh, and I'm telling you, there's no doubt about it. You had some tough kids, and like I told you when I reached out to you, I mean, I just enjoyed watching your kids play. And full disclosure, and you know this about me, I'm a Danny Farmer fan. I grew up with Danny Farmer. He was actually our girls coach when I was growing up at Scott County Central. And,
oh, wow, okay.
Yeah, Coach Farmer went to 8 Final Fours and won 5 state titles as a girls coach before he went back to Charleston. So he's now.
What years were those at Scott County for him?
Those would have been like from the mid to late 80s and early 90s. I think his last year at Scott County Central was 1994. And so then he went over to Charleston. He was an assistant coach with Bobby Spencer. They won the state title in 1996. One of the all-time great teams that ever came out of that part of the state. They had just a loaded team. The only game they lost all year was to Peoria Central, who had Frankie Williams and those guys from
oh my goodness, wow,
those loaded teams from Peoria. That was the only game they lost all year. That team was nationally ranked. I think Charleston finished like 33-1, and then he took over for Coach Spencer. He's been to 8 Final Fours and won 2 state titles as the boys coach at Charleston. So he's been to 16 Final Fours as a head coach, and then if you count the ones as an assistant, I mean, it's probably like up to around 20 or something like that. So
unbelievable.
His career has just, been unbelievable. He's had a great career, and I was disappointed in that game, just as a fan of somebody who used to be your coach, but couldn't help but admire your kids and how hard they played. I mean, you guys were a fun bunch to watch, and especially the Daniels kid. You could tell he's built like a running back. I mean, he's very low to the ground.
Very Sanders-esque.
Yes.
Very Sanders-esque.
That's who he reminded me of. I mean, it's like when that guy got the corner on you, it was almost impossible to cut him off. I mean, he almost set his own screen. So,
and just imagine. Sorry to cut you off, David. Just imagine if when last year he shot 44% from behind the arc on the season. This year, not as high. When he first came to us as a freshman, when he shot it deep, I mean, he almost started laughing because he had no clue where it was going. I mean, he was just straight build. His game was built on penetration and finishing around the rim, and then obviously myself and my assistants, started talking to him, and we worked. A lot of his freshman year is maybe 18% from behind the arc. Sophomore year, 25%. But the jump between his sophomore year to his junior year in terms of 3-point field goal percentage, almost a 20% spike. A lot of time in the off season spent on developing his core, strengthening his core and his legs. Because what we noticed was his speaking of lower body, he wasn't always on balance with that jump shot. So just imagine, he didn't shoot it well this weekend either. I think he only knocked down 1 3, maybe 2 in the 2 games. But a player of his explosiveness and his quicks, I mean, just think if he's around 40% from behind the arc, I mean, it makes him darn near impossible.
Exactly.
And he received one Division I offer in Abilene Christian, and that's where he already signed with in November. So he's going to be signed, sealed, and delivered for the Wildcats down in Abilene, Texas. And I just feel like Coach Golden and his staff, Coach Bostic, did a great job recruiting. I just feel like they're getting a steal, an absolute steal. I know. Obviously, he's 5'7", but David, and you know this, you've been watching the college game. It seems like there's been a shift over the last 4 or 5 years, and the player that kind of sticks out because we played against him over at Sunrise is Tum Naren, senior for Coach Izzo at Michigan State, and it seems like more and more coaches are going to that really, really short, explosive dynamo type player, if you will. You can't have two of them on a Division I roster, but you could probably spend a scholarship on one, and just from a change of pace standpoint, and just from a speed package standpoint, just to give the opponents a different look. And I have no doubt Damien's going to do just fine.
He just has a different gear. He does. I mean, when you watch him play, and I think that we're headed to a place in basketball where you're going to see a lot of teams play 2 point guard lineups, because the guard position is so interchangeable now. And this is a whole tangent that would be a whole different conversation, but I think people overuse the pick and roll. They overuse the ball screen. But I think that we're headed to a place in basketball where a lot of teams are going to have 2 point guards on the floor because point guards are shooting the ball so much more. And he's a kid who I could see just jump starting an offense. I mean, because, like I said, I just don't think you can cut him off one-on-one the way they call the hand checks now, the way that people are using ball screens now. He could absolutely excel at that level.
Well, and then furthermore, how about those steals on Friday night? There was 3 of them, in the backcourt where just after a score, and I missed all of them because after a score I turned my back and as I customarily do, so walked down to the end of the bench. Next thing I know, our student section's cheering. Daniels, stole and finished it, or and won it. I mean, defensively. In fact, Friday night he set a Missouri State tournament record with 9 steals against Transportation.
Oh my! Yeah, I actually saw that. We were coming into the game and people were talking about. Just how quick he was, defensively. And I got to ask you this, and I tell all the coaches, I'm not a journalist, I'm not trying to get a scoop, but you and I have both coached at the Final Four. We've both been frustrated with the officials up there. How big of a turn of, just from first half to second half was the state finals? I mean, you and I were talking about this before. I mean, it's something you have to adjust to. It's something your kids have to adjust to. And I thought you did a masterful job of playing offense for defense with Daniels down the stretch of that game, because his fourth foul, I'll say it so you don't have to, his fourth foul was ridiculous. I mean, it was terrible.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of credit, David, goes to my staff. As you probably noticed, when you play the style of basketball that we do, we're changing defense. We didn't do as much this weekend, but I just, from a head coaching standpoint, and there might be a lot of head coaches out there that may shake their head at this, but I don't do the subbing. Obviously, I got override at the end of the game or whenever. I'll override my assistants, but for the most part, Jonathan Bruce is our lead assistant, and they do a great job with that. So yeah, down the stretch, being able to manage offense for defense, making sure Daniel stayed in the game. A key was having 4 timeouts to be able to do so. That first half, David, it was, I told Misha after the game, one of the interviews, it was just a quagmire. It was, and having been there before, the quick turnaround. Last year, in Class 5 last night. I mean, the semis played on a Thursday, and the championship games on a Saturday.
Sure.
Well, this year for whatever reason, Class 3 we go Friday, Saturday, and Class 4's having to do that tonight. I mean, that's just, my goodness. I mean, all of our eggs are in the basket of transportation in terms of preparation. Okay, so then you have a 15-point lead, 51-36. You relinquish that, and then you find a way to still get it done. And now you got to turn your attention in the late game. We got back to the hotel almost at 11 o'clock, and now guess what? Congrats on that. Now you got Coach Farmer's team.
That's right.
And they're 11 state titles to get ready for, and scramble. I did have film queued up and ready to go, but we obviously saw their length on film, David, but until you get into it, the way they were able to squeeze penetration lanes, and we didn't do a good job going east to west. We didn't get enough sides. That was the focus at halftime, gentlemen. We got to advance it with the pass and not the bounce to open up those penetration lanes. But you hit the nail on the head when you said in terms of adjusting to it, because that again speaks to the regular season challenges that we face. You go on the road every single game. You're playing up most games. More than likely, you're going to have to be 8 to 10 points better than your opponent. because at the end of the day, I mean, it's just a fact of life. More times than not, the home team's probably going to get the better whistle. It is what it is, So, right. Being able to adjust. Hey, I know Coach Farmer and the Charleston fans, they weren't happy as well. I know the third quarter, the foul discrepancy kind of was in our favor. I think things kind of evened out toward the end of the game, but I mean, adjusting to the whistle and being able to get Daniels to the finish line as well as Jackson. And the night before, I mean, transportation, what a game that was. But I think the biggest key was, unfortunately for them, they had Jamar and Carver, and I forget the third player, Bolden, I think, all fouled out. Right. And we were able to make it to the finish line still intact, so to speak, not having a player fouled out. And you can't coach to that. It's just how your guys. You can manage it from a certain standpoint, but in terms of, maybe not going for a loose ball in that situation, or not maybe letting a layup go instead of a contest, whatever the case may be, we were fortunate in being able to keep our guys in both games.
Yeah, and that's, I was sitting with my brother. We were watching that game together, and I'll say this to everybody. I was there, and neither team got, quote-unquote, cheated. Charleston didn't get cheated. You didn't get cheated. It's just the officiating changed it was so drastic in the third quarter, the difference in the calls. And my brother said this to me, and this is something that I've said 100 times in our huddles when I coached my brother when he was younger, is the team that can figure out to stop fouling first is going to win this game. That's what he said to me. We were sitting there watching the game and said, that it's like things have really changed here in the third quarter, and the team that figures it out first he said they're probably going to win. And I thought, again, you guys did such a great job, especially the last 4 or 5 minutes of the game, of it was like a mix and match lineup over and over, especially with Daniels coming in and out, and the way you guys used him and the way you got to the free throw line late. I mean, I just thought that was just really smart on your part.
Yeah, again, hats off big time to my staff for helping manage that situation down the stretch. I will say, I mean, there were times where we couldn't get a timeout call quick enough, or we were, offense for defense after a score, or, happened more than just 4 times. I had 4 timeouts. So those instances, what really helped us, David, was, and I forget the kid's name, number 14 for Charleston. They're the guy that's made 51 threes on the year. Their best 3-point shooter.
Bledsoe.
When he was in the Bledsoe, thank you. When he was in the game, I mean, just tactically speaking, when we addressed this before the game. Gentlemen, he averages 6 points, averages 2 threes a game, and that's what he does. And no knock. I mean, heck, the kid's a phenomenal shooter, but every team's got that kind of similar to our number 25, Miles Johnson. I mean, not to just call him a one-trick pony or a 3-point specialist, but don't help all 14. Like, we're not going to face guard him. We're not going to face Bledsoe, but he should not score in this game, because we just from the film that I saw, I didn't think that he was going to have the ability against some maybe pressure, some aggressive man-to-man, that he was going to be able to score it off the bounce. So those situations down the stretch when Daniels had 4 fouls and we weren't able to get a timeout or stoppage in play, he was immediately sent to 14, and just basically, hey, don't help off him, just stay put, don't let him shoot it, and we were good to go. So.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, you guys made some terrific adjustments down the stretch. So what does your group look like coming back next year? I know you said you're losing 9 seniors. What's in the pipeline at Hogan Prep? What do you have coming?
Yeah. I mean, you could probably answer this better than I can. Now, we're going to be in big time rebuild mode, David. Big time rebuild mode. We're just enjoying. Most of us are still on cloud 9 here. We were recognized at NAI tournament on Wednesday, had the banquet last night. So, I mean, it's, to be honest with you, I haven't sat down and I need to. We got spring break next week, so I'll sit down and start to kind of, rough draft what the month of June's going to look like in terms of summer leagues and then but from a personnel standpoint, it looks like we're really going to be leaning on some youngsters, and which wouldn't necessarily be a bad thing. Like I said, Daniels and number 0, Rasan Collins, and Kevon Maul Edwards, number 22. three players, special group. They played a lot as freshmen. I mean, whether next year maybe we try to find some freshmen and sophomores who from a body standpoint can maybe withstand some varsity action, and maybe, might be a deal where we take a few lumps early in the season, early in their careers, and maybe it blossoms into something, bigger and better down the road. We'll see. Absolutely.
Well, be sure and text me your number. Is this your cell, or is this a school line?
This is a school number, David. When I get off, I'll follow up with an email. I'll give you my cell phone, and we'd love to stay in touch with you. And any other interviews that you want to do on this side of the state, I can definitely, like for instance, if Coach I'm over at Ray South, got a good relationship with him. But any programs over here, if you need help contacting coaches, let me know.
Oh, absolutely, yeah, and I'd love to do something like this again. So we'll be in touch for sure.
Great, David. Hey, I appreciate the opportunity.
Hey, thank you so much, Coach.
All right, thanks.
Okay, bye-bye.